He's jumping on the back of a Bronco. I ain't jumping on the back. Well, okay, funny you said that. We said cow, no, they might be up there. So you have a $1,300 sale bar. Yeah. See how fine it is. We know what she was better be. Not rough. He's online. Oh, I'm not gonna mention that. Oh, look, yeah. It's such a money.
Thank you for always printing agendas for me.
Yeah. I know. I didn't have it out today and I was like, what if today's the day he needs them? And I failed you.
It'll happen someday.
You know, I told him.
But I know you have all your like marking. You do all your stuff. So
That's the plan for commission.
I do mine, but I just put what page of the packet it's on because there's been so many times where like I don't know that I started doing that.
All the emails were just all in the fly. Why? Why? Somebody's doing this. But it was just that one time.
On that night of the sale, that's the night of our meeting. I'm in American Samoa and I'm like, oh, well, certainly they'll have the internet. Certainly on the Samoan Island, I'll have internet. My husband's like, not even playing. I think you're gonna be able to access it.
Oh, there you go.
Why are you trying to Debbie Downer that already?
I know,
You're gonna be in the
right?
ocean with sharks and you're gonna Debbie Downer with tigers. Sounds like you're from the senior own situation.
You're right, you're right.
Yep, got it.
Let's go.
Okay. I make it 30 seconds to the hour, so we'll go ahead and start. Since, to let you know that Jordan was planning on attending remote tonight, so he may or may not be online. We will call this meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is public comment. This is a chance for the general public to bring to our attention something that we may be able to talk about at a future meeting. We obviously can't discuss anything that is on the, not advertised as on the agenda. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to bring public comment forward? Seeing none, I will close public comment. The next item on our agenda is we have a report, an update on the Utopia Fiber project for Syracuse City. I see that Roger's here. Were you going to give that presentation?
Yep.
Okay. It's your turn.
All right. Stand over here.
You bet. Wherever you feel comfortable.
Not lunch here for this slide, so we'll do it. Nice.
Oh.
Thanks for having us here, though. So, I'm Roger Zimmerman, and Nicole Cottle's here with me. She's our deputy director,
Okay.
Utopia Fiber. So if you ask any really hard questions, that's why I brought her here. But she's awesome. Just we weren't here that long ago.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, weren't we just here a few months ago? But it was actually last November. So there have been some changes and updates, and so like it's be good time to come and meet with you and just say where we're at, because it is kind of a critical point of the timing of the revenues, customers, and the debt obligations as well. So
Sweet.
anyways, just historically, for anybody not familiar with this, it was started as 11 city project. Had a few years that were a little bit rough, but then things kind of turned around. I'll show you the timeline of that real quick after this slide. But we then, after things started going really well, demand skyrocketed. We had cities start reaching out, wanting to partner with us. And then we did a little bit of outreach after that too, saying, hey, this has worked really well. We had a new model for how cities could participate with us in the financing of a project, and kind of piggyback off of what had been done before. And the economy of scale that we had at that point, and momentum and all that was really good. And so we looked at cities across the state. Syracuse looked really good. I had pretty bad broadband, and we had a pretty good option for you. So we did an agreement. So you're kind of here, let's see, kind of in the middle. We've done several projects and new partnerships since then. And continue to grow. I'm gonna go to the next slide. Scroll, I don't know if this point
Me.
is good. Okay. This is that timeline I mentioned. So we had some years that they built the backbone. There's a lot of important things that happened during that time, but Utopia had a little bit of reputation for cities having to cover financial shortfalls. But every project since 2009, we've issued debt, build those networks, and we get enough customers on those systems that they would be paid for by the revenues and not the cities. And we've done a lot of that. In fact, a lot more of our history has been successful in those types of projects than the earlier years that were pretty rough. You guys can the next slide. A few things I want to bring attention to. So we're the largest open access network in the country. And we're the largest municipal system by addresses passed. We're up to 23 citywide projects now. And so we're kind of proud of that. We have the fastest speeds in the country. I keep remembering needing to update the slide because we do have 400 gigabit with businesses now. And that's mostly with not really business, but the University of Utah uses us. 400 gigabits, it's their biggest connection. It's our biggest connection too. But we offer a lot of connectivity across the state for various purposes. So we talk here about kind of citywide, it benefits residents and businesses and all that, but even outside of the cities that we have citywide coverage, we're benefiting school systems. So the Davis School District uses us for a lot of their schools inside and outside of the city, and obviously got to connect places outside of the city because that's where their data center is, and you know, they've got one in Kaysville, which we're connected to, even though it's not one of our city projects. So there's a lot of things that happen outside of the city that you benefit from because they're on the Utopia backbone. We bring all of that here to the city. But anyways, lots of really good connections, and we continue to expand that and connect your city to the major data centers and exchange points of the internet. It's the most competitive system. And what we mean by that is we keep getting more and more options on the network. Some of these providers have different bundles, like they can bundle wireless services or home security systems or different innovative things. And so we keep adding more. You know, it's just you have 19 options on Utopia. Sometimes it's hard because people sign up and they're like, that's a lot of choices. But they all do kind of have their own niche and benefits. And it does keep things competitive and priced well. But you have more options here in your city than anywhere else in the country, other than the other Utopia cities. There's no other system like that. Over the last few years, we've connected more schools than any other provider. We continue to win awards from the Utah Education Network for schools and other education related facilities like libraries, things like that. So from our perspective, we like it because it's revenue, but at the same time, if we're winning those bids, we're saving those entities money. And so how we win those, right? So not only are we saving the residents and businesses money, but we're saving taxpayers money and school districts money and improving education that way. We install an air quality sensor. It's just something we wanted to know. Every time we install a fiber hub, we put an air quality sensor in there. So if you were to look up like the KSL weather app for air quality or other places where you can see air quality coverage, you'll notice there's a bunch of sensors in your city. And that's because we automatically put them in all of our installations. You can almost tell which cities are Utopia fiber cities by which cities have lots of sensors in them, because it kind of shows up on a map that way. But that's just kind of part of what we do. We like to enable smart city applications. One of them that's been kind of interesting lately was the wildfire detection. I have the PDF version of this presentation doesn't have the video in it, but I'll send it to you, I guess. But there's a video we have of the fire that just happened in Provo, where we have a thermal camera and an optical camera that you turned onto that to watch it. You can see so much more detail in the hot spots that are there when optically, like with your eyes, you see smoke and things. But the multiple cameras and types of imaging can be very helpful for first responders, or not even first responders, but the the later responders, I don't know what you call them, right, that come in and are doing the fire suppression, that drop the things on the hot spots. And so there's really cool things we can do when we have connectivity. Those are just a couple examples. Some of them are obvious, like Wi-Fi in the parks and public spaces. But you know, this fiber connectivity is here and it's everywhere in the city now. And as we come up with, you know, things we can do with that, and as the city has needs, we can, you know, it's really nice. We can make those things happen. We have a really positive net promoter score. That's a customer service satisfaction score. So we do surveys and ask people like, you like it? Would you recommend this to a neighbor or colleague? That's a common question. You probably answer surveys for all sorts of types of products from when you buy them. And that's used to kind of gauge how much people like what they have. And that's a very good score for broadband. And we're pretty proud of that. Before we came here, we did a survey with the city and we asked that same question. Said, we don't really know what you have. You might have Comcast or wireless or something, but for whatever it is that you have, how likely are you to recommend that to a friend or colleague? The exact same question. It was a negative score. Most people, it wasn't zero, it was negative. People were like, I wouldn't recommend it. It's terrible. I want something better. So we have dramatically improved the service available throughout the city. Google rating score is pretty good too. Let's go to the next slide. These are the choices you have on the network. Where before you just had Comcast in parts of the city, had DSL in parts of the city, some wireless providers. Now you have lots of fiber providers in the city, and most of them are local companies, right? So this isn't money that's going to some company back east or some, you know, profits and shareholders of some corporation. These are mostly Utah-based companies. We love that. Some of them regional, but you know, this is the money that you're paying for the service is being reinvested back in the community to local companies and employees. That's a huge benefit. Next slide. This is just, I'll just hit this real closely. We continue to upgrade this network. Even from when we first started talking to you, we have improved the capacity of the network. And right now you basically have 10 gigabits available and supported to every single address in the city. And even our normal installation, we have switched, anybody getting installed today actually gets a 10 gigabit capable device. When we started, it was 1 gigabit and they only got 10 gig if they ordered a 10 gig service. So we're already kind of in a second generation. And that's better than any other system out there. And even in how that system, we talked about this a little bit when you were evaluating different options. The way we build it is everybody gets their own connection. The other fiber providers out there use it's called a PON system, which is kind of shown in the bottom one, where you get a time slot and you share connectivity with your neighbors. But on ours, everybody has their own connection. And that is the best way you can build these networks. And most of them are actually doing it the cheaper way, but you have the better way. You have the best system in the country. And if your neighbor is obnoxious with their internet, they're like downloading and hogging all that bandwidth, it doesn't affect your connection at all. And that's unique to this type of a system. But most of them actually do slow down if they're built this way.
Okay, I know I'm gonna get this question because you brought it up. So everybody who was a first generation subscriber in the city got a 1 gig connection, but you're now saying you have a 10 gig available.
Yeah,
Is
so
there,
if they order 1 gig, we still only, we limit it to 1 gig still.
right, but is there an upgrade option for people who?
Yeah, if they order 2.5 gig or 10 gig, then we do have to send someone out, but they'll replace the device with the 10 gig device.
And is that an additional cost?
No cost.
I'm just asking
No.
questions that I know I'm gonna get. People
No,
are
it's a
gonna
good
say,
question.
you know, the city,
That's
part of
that
this.
insert friend.
yeah, the ones that I'm not sure I've got, but yeah.
Yeah, there's no cost.
Fair. Save.
Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, we encourage as many people as want it to upgrade to 2.5
upgrade.
gig or 10
Okay.
gig, and there's no charge other than just the monthly fee.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. This is, we didn't talk about this before. We just kind of said, there's a lot of other benefits that happen in your community when you bring a fiber network in, but this is kind of a little more quantified. Based on some of our own studies and some studies done on other municipal fiber networks. The top couple are really easy to measure because we can go out there and just see what the most popular option was before or without Utopia would be Comcast, for an inferior product. That's not symmetrical with the upload or whatever, but the closest product that we have and the most popular that's out there was running about $109 for 1.1 gigabit download and about 50 meg up. And 1 gig symmetrical is actually much better, more reliable, lots of things, but that's the closest thing that would be here otherwise, and the most popular thing here otherwise. It's very easy to say, well, compared to what we have, people are immediately saving about $29 a month for a, and they're getting a better service. And if we just apply some numbers to that, and we've got, when I did this slide, I was looking at a previous month's report, and you had 2790 residential customers. We just take 2790 by the annual savings of $29 a month over a year would be 348. That many customers and that much annual savings, you're saving residents of the city almost $1 million a year. Just money in their pockets. That's huge, right? Like, especially as it seems like everything is getting more expensive, right? And this is a way the city has actually helped people save money dramatically. Your number's actually about 3,000 now. So it's a bigger number than that. Businesses, we don't have as many businesses in the city. There's not a ton of business in the city, but there's some. These are our non-residential customers, about 88 of those right now. We average, there's a lot more variability in business, but we're saying they save about $50 a month compared to what they'd have otherwise. That's very conservative. In many cases, it's much more than that. But that's another 50,000 or more that you're saving businesses by having this in place. And again, if this costs the city a lot of money to put this in place, it'd be worth it. But we asked the city, you know, we're just bringing it up, like, how much have you paid for this? You haven't paid anything for it. You know, the model is working. We issued debt, we built the network, and the subscriber uptake is very good. And we'll show you the chart and where we're at with that, but it would have been worth it if it cost you anything, but it's even more awesome that it isn't costing the city.
Just council, to put that in perspective, that 348 a year for those who subscribe, that's a little more than half of the average annual property tax bill in the city for residents on the savings. The average
Softens the blow on some other things.
the average property tax bill for the city is around 600, some 650, something like that.
This is a very straw man situation.
No, it's a fact.
There was a study done on the Chattanooga fiber network, which is another municipal fiber system, and they went in and looked at a lot of different aspects, a lot more than we had been thinking of you know, property values and education and business investments and all these different things. We went in there and said, okay, what are the categories of that apply to Syracuse, and size that to Syracuse. And according to their thing, and there's a link to it that you'd be able to go read the details and how their logic and everything that leads into that. But basically say by having the network in place over a 10-year period, that there would be an economic benefit of $243 million for Syracuse. Their estimate was like $1.9 billion because it's a much bigger city, but the same benefits apply. And the ones that don't apply, we pulled out of the number. They had some smart grid things and things like that, which still benefit utilities, but you don't have power utilities. So we pulled some of those things out. But still, just the idea that there could be, if you considered all the things that benefit the city, that there would be a 10-year economic benefit of $243 million as a result of this investment. That's enormous. And it's not made up or fake. And we'd encourage you to kind of look at that study if you had, you know, need some reading material. That's pretty interesting. But it, you know, we believe it's an amazing thing we can do for our community by providing this. Next slide. Just real quick. So this is our total subscriber base. People wonder, like, is this still popular? People still liking this? We just had the best 3 months we've ever had with growth across all of our systems. So no, satellite isn't meeting people's needs. Cable's not meeting people's needs. All of the other things out there are not meeting people's needs except fiber. Fiber is increasing in popularity and becoming critical infrastructure everywhere in all of our communities. And you're there benefiting from that. We see demand continuing to increase. Next slide. This is by city. Probably more of a chart demonstrating the size of each city relative to each other. But the nice thing is that we do see that even cities that have had fiber for a long time continue to add customers to the system. So it's not just like, hey, 30% of a city is going to sign up and then we're done. We continue to see take rates and subscribers grow. The ones that are growing fast, obviously, are the ones that just got it recently. So,
Which color are we?
This one.
Can't miss it, all the way to the right.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
we got your own chart next, so it'll be easier to see. Ready to the next slide. So this represents the build out of the system. So we entered into an agreement about a year before this.
Mhm.
It took us some time to build, then we built it, and the first neighborhood became available. And the last neighborhood was available here, right? So this is like how many addresses in the city could sign up. So we finished about September 2023. Better for a couple years. Next slide. This is the number of subscribers on the system. So that kind of follows that, right? System becomes available, people sign up. But that's still growing pretty well. I did mention that we're over 3,000. You're like, well, wait a second, you know, that's a little bit of a jump there. Well, there was a jump. We had a door-to-door sales team come through the city just recently. And so this last month, where we were averaging about 45 subscribers, we were about 160 subscribers that signed up and were installed last month. So it's actually like our report that'll come out the first of the next month will have this nice little jump up there representing that. Next slide. Okay, this is the financials of this thing. So the light lines, we showed this last time, but we didn't have as much history on it. The light lines were what we had planned originally. We said, okay, there's going to be a debt obligation and there's going to be revenue growth. And if we follow this light green line, we're in great shape. There's no shortfall that falls to the city, even though the debt payments start here and we're making those debt payments. But we have this revenue that was accumulated here. And so that actually buys us, you know, several extra years before we actually need the revenues and the debt payments to be matched to each other. The trend line is still ahead of where we're at. We're like, oh, it slowed down a little bit, but it actually jumped up really well last month. So we're still ahead. And even if this flattened out quite a bit and didn't cross over until like way out here, we're still good because this area here was ahead of schedule. So this was essentially
Buffer.
excess cash, right? That's a buffer for any possible exposure to the city. So as we look at this, we're like, yeah, we're actually great. It's not going to take us 5 years more to get here. We're actually like halfway there now from here to there, and we'll get that easily over the next few months. So, you know, we're not declaring victory. Don't want anybody to like stop promoting the network. It's great. And you know, what else is happening? I mean, there's new development going in, more homes are coming in, more people signing. There's a lot of things that give us a lot of confidence that that's an easy target. But we're still vigilant, still want to see people signing up. We still want to be the very best option for people. You know, we don't take that for granted, and we appreciate that people are signing up and that there are other options out there. You know, nobody's been compelled to sign up for this. I'm going to show the next slide. So this shows where the customers are. The red dots are customers, the blue dots are business customers. And they're all over the city. So you know, this once it's all over the place, it's like, yeah, this doesn't really disclose anything confidential or anything like that, or to competitive people. We're like, yes, we're probably easily the most popular service in the city now for broadband, and continuing to get more and more customers. So we're happy to see that, and as you feel in pockets here and there with new homes, that's also helpful too. Hit the next slide. We continue to update and improve the system. So when we started this project, we didn't have that 2.5 gig tier. That's a new offering, and it's been pretty popular. We lowered the price for 10 gigabits. We continue to improve our apps and capabilities to make signups quicker and easier, scheduling and installations automated now. We keep doing more and more smart city partnerships with cities, just finding things that we can do to help the city itself with its functions. And then we just see a lot of future stuff coming in that's in development, like well, VR, virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence. Not only do these things need speed, but they need reliability and they need low latency. And that's something that a lot of people are like, I don't even know what that means, but that's the time it takes for your signal to get to the data centers and back to you. And fiber beats everything else by a lot. And so as we see the future and the needs and all the cool stuff coming out, we're just like, hey, that's great. You know, so far that everything that's happening and everything that all the best crystal balls of predicting the future of technology and all that all indicate more and more demand for this service. And we're just glad that we're here and have this in place for our communities. The next slide. This is the one that would be a video of if you were to go to that link, that'll actually show you a live video of that camera. But we have a bunch of these cameras that kind of scan over high risk areas for wildfire. And that's just like one example of how you can use connectivity. And that'd be a big project, a difficult thing to get connectivity for that sort of thing, but we have connectivity over in the city. So you're just like, you want a camera? Let's put up a camera. You want a sensor? Let's put up a sensor, right? We can get anywhere pretty easily because that infrastructure is in place. Probably the last slide.
So we're about over time, but anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We seem to be in a really good place. Jody?
I'm just gonna echo that, you know, I think a lot of times we focus on our problems here because we have plenty of them. But I think, you know, it's a good time for the council to kind of take a win. And that goes for the mayor. You were on the council when this deal was done and Jordan was. I think so far, right, it's not conclusive yet, but so far this has been a win for the city and for the citizens. And I think, you know, should celebrate those.
And it has been a win for business recruiting that we have fiber available throughout the city. And it has been a win for some of the other productive things that have come up with home businesses that say they need the accessibility in order to run a home business, and our home businesses have jumped as well considerably in the last couple of years. So I think that this was a really good move, and I'm encouraged that we are ahead of schedule. I'll feel much better when we are above the recoup line, but as long as we stay on the right trajectory. So
I mean, I have noticed on social media, every time someone moves to the city and asks about internet, the first 10 comments are Utopia. I don't use Utopia, but I do notice people are very, very happy about it. And that's the first one that comes up every time. You'll love it. Utopia, it's so fast. So congratulations.
Totally agree. Whichever council member pushed for this at the beginning, kudos to them.
Yes.
okay,
Pat
thank
your
you
own
very
back,
much.
bro. Like, what are you doing?
We're gonna move on our agenda. I appreciate your time. Item D will be our planning items. We'll take these in order. Number 1 is recommendation from the Planning Commission. This is an application for a zone change at property located at 2402 West, 2700 South. This is currently an A1 area that is asking to go to an R2. Noah, would you give us an overview?
Yeah, of course. This is a requested rezone for just the house. So they want to sell just the house off, and the area that they want to part off is too small for A1 zoning. So the fenced in area is just this needs to be rezoned.
Okay,
You guys are now 2700 ready for the new highway, that house that they tore down the other one, it's that one. So it's just got the hayfield adjacent to it. I think that's the only thing we can do with it, right?
So there'll be two lots. The next action that they're wanting to do after, if they're successful in a rezone, is to do a lot split. And so there'll be
Yeah.
the house lot and then the hayfield, and that'll be zoned A1. If they ever want to do something else other than a hayfield, they'll be in here asking for a rezone.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds good.
so this seems more academic than anything. Has anybody got any particular questions?
I mean, I feel like the house is already there, so
Yeah.
it's not like we're building, nobody's building anything, nothing like that. It's-
Right.
It's just letting them sell their house with it and keeping their hayfield, and I support that hayfield, so.
Okay. All right, does anybody see any reason why this would not go on a consent agenda, since it's pretty much just dealing with what's already there? It's not a real change to the city. Okay, I'll move that to the consent agenda. The next one is item number 2, continued discussion and review of city land rental and lease policies and identification of properties potentially available for lease or rental at a commercial entity or to a commercial entity. So we met with the city staff that would be involved, which would be Parks and Rec and Public Works and Economic Development, and talked about what they felt was really viable that didn't actually end up more of a hassle to the city. And to be fair, for the most part, if we start leasing city land to independent businesses, it puts an undue set of management that we just wouldn't have otherwise. And then the second part of this question is, if we do engage in this, are we giving an unfair advantage to a business? And I'm gonna let you discuss that one openly, but it does seem that in most cases that would be a case. So we did come up with 3 potential, wasn't it 3? Yeah, that are varying degrees of options of what might work as a rental property. But the first question that I ask council is, do you feel like this is something you want to engage in? If it is, let's look at those possible first 3. I think the recommendation from the department heads of the people involved would be, let's suggest those for lease first before we try to identify any others that might work, because they would be the least impactful to the city. Now, I will say that there is one group that we decided to handle in a very specific way, and that is, there's been a lot of talk about what happens if the city ends up governing park and rides. Because we don't at this time, there is no reason to discuss that until we do. It really, if we start putting that cart before the horse, that could mess up the rest of the things that are surrounding that project. So we're not even dealing with park and rides at this time. We're dealing with just things that the city owns. Okay?
And I would add, the same evaluation criteria could really be applied to any property. You know, especially for mobile businesses. I guess there's other kinds of businesses like fireworks stands that might not as much infrastructure, but every business is going to need power. It's going to need a place to park. It's going to need
A bathroom.
water, and they need a place to dump their food, wastewater at the end of the day, and they need garbage. And so, you know, we can evaluate any property based off of what infrastructure is available. And another important criteria is we don't want to lose money.
Yeah.
Or a lot of money. And when we subsidize these, we're just losing money to the taxpayer. And so I've in the packet, I've included a list of some of the properties. The first one is the one that we're already doing. And we've discussed we are losing money on the current lease rate. So that'd be the number one thing that if we're going to keep doing it, we got to increase the rate to about $1,000 a month. But that property at Bluff Ridge is already pretty well worked out. They've got all the things. There are still some safety concerns as far as kids will still dart across the parking lot sometimes.
The road.
And sometimes the road too, if they're on the south side of the road. But for the most part, out of all of the properties, that's the one that we've already been doing it and it's been worked out.
And keep in mind that when we talk about what is potential for a future property, over time, the city's paid for most of these upgrades to that property. So I think that that's where we have to fundamentally talk about what's our future. Should we keep paying for these upgrades so that these things can happen, because it has cost the city.
So I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
This was what was brought up at the last work session that I wasn't, and I'm the tiebreaker on this one. Am I not?
Yes,
Yeah, I'm with Miss Crystal on this. After looking into this a little further, I don't think we should do this. And after almost hitting a kid, coming down 2,700, I think that place is starting to become questionable. And I don't feel like the city needs to be liable for any of this. It's just a bigger headache than it needs to be. So it's gonna be a no
okay,
from me. And I also feel like where they want to put the next, I don't think, I'm no expert, but I don't think it would do well there. The only reason the one that's there does is because it's next to where the kids play.
yeah.
There's not adults playing in that
So
splash pad.
I agree with you. So the question really comes down to, first, should we be entertaining future business sites on city property?
No. I agree with that last time.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it if it's not if we're not losing money on it. I think there's certain benefits and gives us maybe keeps kind of that smaller town feel to having some of this stuff like this, but some of the things that we've talked about, some of the things that make some of the sites not great are all things that should be passed on as cost to those renting. I don't know why we're providing a dumpster. You should have to provide your own trash receptacles and empty them daily. If you're caught dumping water where you shouldn't, there should be language in a lease agreement that fines you for that. I don't like porta potties, but if there's locations where you can do that, if power needs to be fixed, it should be charged as a tenant improvement as part of a lease agreement. So I'm not opposed to it as long as we're not losing money over it.
Right,
No.
okay.
Well, that's three right there.
Jordan, let's give Jordan a chance to talk.
I think you were a no too, because you can't,
Yeah.
how do you know if you're gonna lose money on it?
I think feel like just the personal loan it would take to keep up with that would be a financial burden to the city in its own,
Immediately.
let alone all the stuff you gotta add.
Immediately because it's a burden.
We need a
Yeah.
whole new inspector.
Let's,
Well, it becomes a lease agreement.
Yeah, but who's gonna go check and make sure they're following through? An inspector.
okay, so Jordan, I want to give you a chance if you wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, thanks. So I agree with Paul on this one. If we're going to do it, it needs to cover the cost of the service. That's kind of our mantra in a lot of things. So as long as it covers the cost, I'm okay with it, but it sounds like you've got three, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for being on the record. It doesn't look like this has enough support to go forward, so we'll not move this forward as an item. This brings us to item C, which is continued discussion of a consideration to lease a specific property. We've just decided that's probably not in our best interest. And that property, the one that was being requested, we decided was one of the least favorable for a site when we evaluated all of them. So I'm just going to put that on the record, but it appears like that one follows the previous item. Does anybody disagree?
But I really do love this coffee shop. I'm a little heartbroken.
Yeah.
over this.
Hey, you already said no.
I know, and I'm heartbroken over it. I was like, man, I gotta put my own personal feelings aside and make the right judgment call here. And
Okay,
I
That's
really
why I
wanted
would
a
say
coffee
some
shop.
of the acquaintances.
Way a little business like that.
So
get it
here's
forward,
what I'm
but
gonna
we
say.
have to charge.
Here's
There's
what
no way.
I'm going to say to that, though. We did go out of our way to see if we can't help them locate.
Yeah,
someone
I know,
else.
I know.
And
think
I
we all want-
really think that that's a good move for the city, and I would encourage us to continue that.
That's great.
And
to promote-
Bruno would also be a wonderful suggestion when Bruno's followed through.
Okay. So that's what I mean, I think that that's a good thing. Let's continue to try and help them find their own arrangement on private property and just keep the city out of it. Is anybody, we all agree there? Okay, all right, good. So I'll move us on to number 4, continued discussion and review of Syracuse Municipal Code 9.15 regarding building permit requirements. I'm going to invite Brian Lemons up to the table here, our city inspector. There's been some discussion. Everybody wanted to kind of talk about what requires the city code and why. I will say that we're doing some research. I think we have one of the fundamental things that came up when we were doing questions with traffic. There were people that said, oh, we really think that there should be some traffic changes in a particular neighborhood. And at that time, a previous city attorney came back and said, well, you have a fundamental problem that when you do something other than a national standard, you incur some liability because you decided to change it. Whereas a national standard has some automatic built-in defense that somebody had studied this across the entire country and decided that it was a good idea. So similarly, when we decide what requires a permit and what doesn't, we do have some backing that this is a common federal practice. It does not mean that we have to go with the exact thing. I'm just bringing that up, that it has a very similar feel to that previous discussion. So there were some specific questions and we can talk about that. Brian's here to answer some of those questions, but I wanted to put it on the table and bring out the background that I did look into so that we had that as a discussion basis.
Yeah, we've adopted those national codes and we enforce them and we require building permits. I know that there's some questions. Hopefully we've answered the questions in the staff report, but we can talk about any questions you guys have, and we got the expert here.
So I guess one of my questions and or concerns is I think we're requiring permits on things that maybe we shouldn't necessarily require permits. And I'm probably talking about a very limited scope of things. New construction, roofs, all of those things that have major potential impact. I'm probably talking about limited things of replacing existing equipment in the same location within a house with just updated
Talk
equipment.
about water heaters.
Which are limited, there's a list. Which ones are you specific talking about?
I'm getting to.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So it's HVAC systems, heating and air conditioning, water heaters, and then potentially some electrical updates, whether it be like singular breakers or things like that. Those types of things, it seems like I don't think people are, for the most part, doing it. And I think it's a bit unreasonable to ask for people to pull a permit to do those types of updates.
So thoughts on somebody fixing whatever they've already built and had inspected as a replacement?
DIYer.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, well, a DIY or a DIY, it's already taking place. I mean, you can juggle
We
them
know.
up as much as you want, but
It's true, it does take place.
people do it all the time, and there's dangers in everything we do. At what point do we require the citizens to take some responsibility upon their side? We cannot save everybody from everything. But yeah, I mean, if I wanted to replace an HVAC system, I'm not going to do it myself, but I'm going to vet a licensed contractor who does good work, and I'm going to hire them to make sure it's done appropriately. I just don't see why my city needs to be involved in that.
Well, I mean, cities can pull back on what they require. But if you do that, insurance rates do go up for our residents. Because we're exposing them
that
to
data. That's not a for sure thing. That's an assumption. The data, the information that I read on it with Bear Risk and ISO is that may be a portion of it, and it may come into play, but still the things that impact insurance rates are still going to be primarily building materials, age of residence, floodplains, fire areas, those types of things. Those are the major impactors of insurance rates. So again, to say that, yeah, if we pull back on a couple of things that rates are for sure going up, I don't think any of us can make that claim.
Yeah, it would hurt our ISO rating, and I'm not an insurance guy, but I know that some insurance companies look at that, and like I said, it's up to you guys if you wanted to.
So if the
take
house
something in.
burned down and the insurance company said, okay, it was because of this breaker that you switched out, who inspected it and where was your? And they say, oh, we don't have one because our city doesn't require it. Well, the national standard says you have to have it and you didn't have one. So how does that work on being paid for your house that just burnt down when you didn't do what the insurance company requires you because you didn't read the fine print and you told the city you don't want them involved in your shit?
have you,
This has actually happened.
when?
Yeah, lots of news stories, you know, when you're dealing with electrical and gas, like, there's a lot of examples that we can point to.
If an insurance company can prove that you didn't get a permit that was required, and their insurance company doesn't want to pay, that's happened before. They've not covered a whole house fire,
Okay.
burnt the house to the ground because of the water
I-
that got installed.
I mean, I deal with insurance claims day in, day out. I have in my business for my clients, I've never been asked by an insurance company for permits.
Well, but that's this is a different question than what you had anyway, because this is about getting a permit, not getting a permit when you should have. Your question is, should we even require the permit in the first place?
Correct.
I've got some numbers in the packet on it's on page 63. I know that we don't have all the water heaters inspected. There's homeowners that are doing it. There's homeowners doing HVAC. All these permits that are in here that are failed in the pink are by licensed contractors. So these are licensed contractors came got a permit because they know they have to have a permit. And we had 156 total inspections, and out of that, 53 of them failed for safety reasons. And this is the licensed contractor that you said you're gonna hire and that make sure they did a great job.
Because I don't know nothing about that. I wouldn't know any different until I tried to carbon.
These aren't homeowners that are doing this. This is licensed contractors that are failing their inspections for safety violations.
I think that part of the debate, I think, is we're deciding if we should change what's in the city code. Abiding by what's in the city code really still is a personal decision. I mean, no one is gonna go to track down that you bought a new water heater and find out if you used a licensed contractor or if you installed it yourself.
Right,
And-
but we're using examples and making claims
Right.
that based off the data that we provide, that has impact on our insurance rates.
Yeah,
And
That's just
And-
one portion of it.
well, yeah, and that's one portion of it. It's one that's been repeated a couple of times. But and I just lost my train of thought.
I guess at this point,
Yeah.
what I would say is, I think that for the DIYers out there who want to replace their own water heater or want to switch out a burned out fuse or a burned out switch, I don't think anybody's even gonna know, let alone ask them if they got a permit.
Oh, sorry, that you just reminded me what my point was. So part of the question or some of the things that were brought that they may look at is enforcement. If you require something and you're not enforcing it, then that can have the same impact as what we're talking about. Maybe
The
not.
ISO rating.
Yeah. So if we're requiring something and we have no way to enforce it, are we any better off?
That's a good question.
But how would you, like, literally, we were talking about this for the meeting, I just had the whole system this year replaced, all the HVAC and water heater and everything. And I was like, my address isn't on this list, and there was a contractor that came in, and why didn't an inspector come to my house?
Yeah.
I feel left out, you know? So there's a
Remember,
problem.
yeah,
And then I asked, like, how do they know? Because it's a rental company, so have they applied for any of them? Has it ever happened with them? Because they've been replacing a ton of stuff on older homes. So, and he was like, well, it's usually like the contractors, because if we see you walking in with a water heater, we're not gonna stop and be like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, that's fair.
Yeah, police people.
Yeah.
That's not their job.
And the cops definitely aren't looking to do that, so.
But enforcement and compliance factors in.
we
But how do
would
you know
love
to
if,
enforce it, though?
I
if you
agree.
I don't know.
yeah, we would
On
love,
the ISO report, all they ask is, do we do
The
inspections? for
Utopia
water heaters?
sensors can tell us.
Inspections for furnaces, so if we were to tell them, no, we don't do that
I
anymore,
know.
that's.
Are they asking on any or just new construction or
No,
both?
any, yeah, they ask us if we do, inspections on water heaters, HVAC, electrical, so. If we were to tell them no, then that would affect, but they're not saying, asking how many numbers, you know, they're not asking us how many. People aren't getting permits, like we have no idea how they tell that. They're just asking if we do, because that is a code that's required, or that's something that's required by the International Building Code to get a permit. So if we tell them, no, we're not following that does affect that could affect your insurance, not really.
we would love to inspect every single one. but like you said, it is, sometimes the residents don't do that. And remember last time we had the data, and last month we had like 2 permits for water heaters. We know there's more than 2 water heaters going in. So we talked about like education programs, you know, that's up to you guys, you know, what resources you want to throw in it.
Talked about that too. I didn't know that you needed a permit for that
Water
until
heater,
I
yeah.
saw the packet. I was like, wait a minute, hold on.
And last
What
time
do
at
we-
this meeting, the mayor asked Kara to do a educational thing, and that started.
Yeah, it started.
Kara's already sent that out.
And it had some negative and some positive feedback. You know, some people are like, well, why are you asking? Well, you know, education, that's, you just need to know that this is what's expected. We're not, I think that this is one of those things that we don't ever expect to go around in police. We are not gonna start, you know, how new is your water heater? I don't see any permits that were got, or but in the last 4 years and of when you replace this. We're not doing that kind of stuff. That would make no sense. You know, and there's a lot of people out there. I will give an example. My very own brother and I were talking about older water heater in a home that we are a part of, not in this city, let me just say. And we said, well, the water heater's old enough, should we replace it? And my brother said, well, if we do, I'm doing it myself because I'm not paying anybody else. They won't do a
Never
good
coming
job.
back to visit again.
Yeah, they won't do as good a job as I'll do. And I don't fault the people out there who think they can do a better job and they will care because they're involved in the property.
It's just that there's
So
one
I have-
extra step after that, and the step is that now you
It should be
get on the
inspected.
phone and have the inspector.
Yeah, and that's my question. What would it cost to normally have an inspector come out? You might know that. What does it cost to normally have an inspector come out and check something anyway?
Oh,
Because with your permit comes an inspector when you're done, and that's $100. And I feel like if you're just gonna have an inspector come out anyways, that's probably pretty close to the cost.
it's $100 for the permit.
Yeah, for,
It would be more than that to have like a home inspection company.
Come and do that, yeah.
Well, permit pays for the inspector later after.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not suggesting that we change the policing at all. The question on the table tonight is, should we change the code? And really, the fact that what we really adopted was an international standard, should we deviate from that? And that is your question, and I don't know that we should, whether we do or not, I don't think that we do anything about changing the policing. I'm not gonna try to track people down.
you know, my,
I'm so concerned about home repairs that I'm literally like, where's my inspector?
But
I wanna
but
make
you
sure it's
could-
right.
Like I said, you could, like, let's say somebody has a gas range that they cook on. They could replace that and blow themselves and their neighbors sky high.
Which is why.
You don't require a permit for that either. I'm just saying, there's so many things that you could do at your property that doesn't require a permit. That causes equal amount
I agree.
of risk, but we're saying, no, these things.
The national standard will intercept those at some point, please have it.
Pretty soon we won't be able to do anything.
I think
inside
that,
of our own
I
homes.
think that the homeowners that think that way, they're doing it. They're doing it that way. They're just doing it on their own. They're, you know, they. I don't think that's gonna change anything.
Yeah, and I think
What's the penalty imposed to a homeowner if we find them carrying a water heater into their house and ask for a permit?
Nothing.
In the past, so here's been my experience in the city. In the past, if somebody needed an inspection or a permit and they didn't have one and they were found out, the suggestion was, well, would you fix it? I mean, like, okay, you know you need one, so you're gonna come in and get one, and they still may not. I mean, we're not like tracking people down and arresting anybody, we're not finding people. It's just kind of, this is the standard, there's a benefit to it. I've had neighbors tell me, well, I don't want to tell you this, but I'm thinking about building my own deck. I'm like, okay.
Hope it doesn't fall off.
Did you threw that out, that I'm like gonna like bless it? or-
I would just say it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember, what is the purpose of inspection? And it's a public,
Safety.
it's a public safety service that the city provides to not guarantee the safety of anything.
Yeah.
But help ensure that it's safe. It gives the consumer some added comfort, the fact that their contractor, who has a specialized skill that they know nothing about, actually did it the way they're supposed to do. And
You're like me.
that's the whole purpose of the service. And so, yeah, the fundamental question is, how much should the city get involved in safety of the people's homes and businesses?
I wonder how many times a contractor has charged the homeowner for the permit, but
And
never filed for it, cause I would be like, where the hell is my inspector? Like, I know that permit was on my bill.
I've never had an inspector come.
See?
Yeah, so I think that what our responsibility
Me
is,
either.
Yeah, in 25 years.
I'm just gonna say that I think that where the responsibility for us is, we put what the expectation is according to the documentation we have. If people follow it, we are here to provide it. If people choose not to, I don't think that it's something that's of value for us to chase down.
And I would say that Brian would never do this, but let's say we had a less experienced inspector.
Yeah.
That missed something. I think there's, inspectors aren't perfect either, just like there's
Agreed.
contractors that might misinstall something. There's certainly inspectors that could miss something on an inspection as well, so there's no way to, guarantee 100% that nothing is ever going to happen, so.
So with us inspecting, we put a lot of confidence in the contractor. Start with, so we're just a second set of eyes on it, so we're getting two people looking at it. I can tell you that I've been there for 13 years and I've never find a homeowner for not getting it. It's more just, we just ask them to get it so we can try and look at it. We don't find them. We do have a fine in the fee schedule. We can. It's not the fines in the fee schedule for the contractors. No. And we found out that a lot of contractors do charge people, or they charge more than what our permit actually is. And so about a month ago or 2 months ago, we created a paper for these over the counter permits, and the contractor has to have the homeowner sign it. And it tells them what the cost of our permit is. And I asked them not to pay the full contract price until they've had a final inspection, because once they have a final, we don't have any hold, you know what I mean? So if there's something wrong, they've already paid for it. We can't do it about it. So we have made some changes, to kind of help the homeowners, so they're not getting shafted by the.
Cause we talk a lot about elderly folks and how a lot of things you hit their pocketbook, and there's some skinny people out there that'll take advantage of that and charge $500 for a permit, never file for it, and do shoddy work, And I'm glad that you guys, I didn't know that you guys put that out. That's
Well,
fantastic.
And we've published in the last couple of years, I've published some scam alerts when we've heard stuff come around and we were alerted to it. So I shared it and said, here's some of the typical scams. People come and say, well, I can do this work today if you'll pay me in full up front. And I've advised people never do that, never pay the full amount until the work is done. And we try to educate people as best we can, but in the end, it is individuals' responsibility to.
Except for lawyers.
Except for lawyers.
Yeah.
But I also learned, which I should have already known this, but I've spent so much time learning about how public works pay is broke down between the different compartments, that I didn't spend enough time learning about theirs. And theirs is actually done off of the permits that are applied for, not the over-the-counter ones, right? Explain that.
So like houses,
Value-based.
like commercial buildings, we charge a plan review fee, and that's where a lot of our money that covers the building permit comes from, is from those, the over the counter permits, they don't make, we don't make money. Basically pays for inspection, the driver to go out there, it pays for wages and the driver to.
Well, it's not like it's not like a taxpayer thing, it's from the ones that are applied for is what it's used for. Pay for use department.
Yeah, the new buildings and things like
And I
that
appreciate that.
add new traffic, they pay impact fees.
Yeah.
Proportionate to what they're adding.
So I want to circle us back to the question, is there a strong feeling that we should change what's included or deviate from the national standard?
I am in the minority, but I would exclude HVAC replacements and water heater replacements.
Okay, anybody else?
I would like to stick with
I
the
want my
national standard.
inspector.
What's that, Jordan?
I really like following a national standard. It's easily defensible and you can explain why you did and didn't do something. It's just easier to
Okay,
point to be
so
like,
What I'm seeing is a majority that we just let the national standard abide. We're not gonna go handcuff anybody that's carrying a water heater into their home. We never have, we don't.
Laugh.
Yeah, we're not, so we'll go with that. I'm gonna move us on and we won't revisit that one for now.
Is this
Thank you for
solid?
coming, Brian. I think that we've resolved most of that. So the next one is code enforcement policies related to
Thank you.
business landscaping. I think some of the concerns have been raised over time that we do expect homeowners to enforce some reasonable standards, and we have had some businesses who've not applied any effort to the same standard. And what do we do? Because it is a reflection on the city. It does have an effect on people who would be neighboring businesses not wanting to move in next to somebody who doesn't take care of their business, because you don't want to be the business next to the shabby one. So I think we have to do something. The question is what?
I'm gonna need a little bit more of a definition on shabby, 'cause I
shabby?
don't think I've seen a real shabby business in our city.
I would, okay, so
So,
I hesitate to call anybody out, but our citizens for years have called out the fact that our movie theater parking lot has weeds taller than humans. And of course, our ordinance says that once it gets beyond 6 inches, you should take care of the weeds. And we've visited with that business and said, can you get somebody to take care of this? And they say, well, that's a corporate thing. Go talk to corporate. None of our employees do this kind of work.
so why
So,
don't we just send corporate a bill?
well, now that's an abatement issue. If we choose to go to do it ourselves and abate it, that is an option. The question is should we be more enforceful on the standards that are there? Because the standards that are there say that we shouldn't have to abate a business. They should take care of their own property.
Listen, everybody's boss has a boss, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Get on the phone and call their boss, cause
Yeah.
you're the boss.
But at
we-
this point, we're discussing
But-
what we're even going to enforce and call that boss.
So,
Well, we should enforce.
yeah, so in our
And it should be
ordinance-
them calling their boss, not us.
Yeah,
They're not, so we gotta take next step.
so for weeds and dead trees, we have the tools. We can turn the screws and we can find them, we can abate it. It's already in the ordinance. You can't have the weeds and the dead haunted house trees. But what is not covered in our ordinance is very clear on the other items like building maintenance, or what if the parking lot is cracked and falling apart and you can't even drive through there anymore? Or what if they
gone into
Why don't we already have a corporate person on speed dial?
yeah, well, what if the grass is all brown and dead, but it's lower than 6 inches? You know, and so we have a
That's.
okay,
All right, so
Talk about businesses.
yeah.
And they're not all large corporations.
They're
A lot of
not.
them are small.
But we're talking about the one that's.
I know, but this
Well,
applies to everybody.
We
There's like-
actually
There's
have
a lot more
of commercial
businesses that need
properties
some
that
updates.
have these things that we mentioned, like the building has trim that's falling down.
Yeah.
It's not painted. Parking lot has cracks. It's not paint. The lines aren't painted in the parking stalls anymore. Or it's
Mulch is
just
blown
dead. The
away.
mulch is gone. They haven't done anything for years. You know, they still have
Weed
the
papers
yeah,
almost
there's a
deteriorated
lot of
too.
poorly maintained properties, and so I proposed an ordinance in the
Driving around town, 'cause I don't see any of this.
really.
Okay.
So there's a balance that should be debated. You know, we don't want to pick on businesses. I know it's
No.
hard to have a business, but at the same time, we want it to look nice and represent our community well. So I've proposed an ordinance. If you guys like it, we could follow something like that. It adds some additional regulations that they would need to follow, or there could be somewhere in between, whatever you guys want.
I'm gonna suggest that we have to consider businesses in the same way that we consider residents. And that is the reason that we allow residents to call and complain if there is a code violation living next to them. The reason that's allowable is because it does affect their property value if the whole neighborhood is not kept up. Well, I think that we owe other businesses the same respect, and that would be if you called because your neighboring business isn't keeping up their property, and that deters people from coming to your business, that you have the same loss, whether it's property value or business loss. So there should be something there. The question again is, how far do you go, and how do we enforce it?
Well, I mean, some of the stuff in this updated portion talks about. Oh, maintenance also includes continued keep of all architectural site plan elements as originally stated, including but not limited to awnings, paint, windows, trim elements, roofing, siding, masonry, light fixtures, and other or exterior cladding. So what if a business happens to have something, maybe the wood trim on their building is not painted and doesn't meet the standard, and they've got it budgeted for next year, but they can't get to it this year? Are we gonna escalate the fines and then get to $500 and then $500 a day and give them a misdemeanor?
I feel like
I mean,
this
this is
great.
what the
That's a
code,
misdemeanor.
the code says we can
I
do.
understand.
I feel like this
This
was
is a
great.
good question.
I think it is way too aggressive. I think it is way
I
too
don't think
aggressive.
it's too
I
aggressive.
understand.
Things case by case.
I agree with you. I understand
You
that.
don't think a $500 a day fine is too aggressive for having peeling paint on wood and and
Who
being
said it
charged with a
wasn't?
misdemeanor?
Well, we
So
would
it
never
wasn't-
get there until
said it
we
wasn't
were working
too
with
aggressive.
them a lot.
What was that?
Yeah.
We both said that it's too aggressive.
Oh, you said it's too aggressive?
Yeah, we work with you.
Yeah, okay.
We support you.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think it's aggressive.
That is good.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I feel like when it's things that, it is a corporation, like the movie theater that we know about, we go higher. And I feel like I shouldn't be the only person that knows that, like, go up further. Somebody's boss has another boss until you get to the big guy and be like, listen, this is a problem. And you are the mayor of the city. Who doesn't want a phone call from the mayor of the city? A corporation boss, that's who.
All right, so I will address this one by saying this. You're right, everybody has a boss, and I used to say the same thing. What I've realized is there are some businesses, not very many, but there are gonna be exceptions to the rule where the person's not even in state. I mean, we have a couple of vacant lots that were purchased by people who are out of state, and we have tried to get a hold of them and say, you need to clean this up because it's a fire hazard at this point. And they're just like, oh, yeah, we'll take care of that, click. And you know, I can't go to 3 states away and chase this person down if they don't respond. I have.
But we
called.
can send them a fine.
We
We can issue
fine them.
citations.
Yeah, we have a process where we send a notice of violation letter, and if they don't comply within the amount of time that we give them, then we send them a citation letter. And then the fines start piling up. So
It is a longer.
if they don't
process.
answer to us, they'll have fines.
I feel like I'm
But-
gonna say, I say every time, communication is free.
Yeah,
Communication is free.
And there's. a
I actually
difference-
disagree with that. When you're trying to chase down a corporate president and Dave is trying to call him week after week after week, that's not free at that point.
Yeah, in the art of code enforcement, right? There's the law, and then there's the discretion and application of the officer,
Sure.
right?
Personal
And
relationship.
so the law is meant for those who are just being recalcitrant and not complying at all.
It's good work.
And
Agree.
And so the application and discretion of the officer, if they say, hey, I'm gonna get on top of this, it's gonna take me a couple months, but I'm working on it like a little at a time. I'm gonna do this tree first, and then I'm gonna do this mulch over here. They've always worked with them and said, as long as you're making progress and headed in the right direction, we're not issuing a citation. But as soon as you stop or go backwards, then we start moving towards the citation. That's kind of the art of it.
Sure.
That's not gonna be in the code.
I feel like it's unreasonable to expect people to change, fix a lot of things all at once, especially in
we
today's
agree.
economy, you know?
we all
It
agree.
really is, yeah. So the grace goes a long way with things like that, but when it comes to something just so repetitive, and I think there's a few people in here that would refer to those as frequent flyers, they require a bit more attention.
Agree.
Yeah, and we've always preached to our enforcement that compliance is the goal, not punishment.
Yes.
Right.
However, you have to punish when they.
Punishment is still an option.
It's an
though.
option. It's in the code. Yeah, absolutely.
Not
So,
our first choice or our second, still viable.
so there was a first step made, and that was something that was put in the packet to say, here's something we could at least base, a policy off of. I'm fully expecting people are gonna ask to modify that, so let's start there. What type of things do you think need to be modified in the first draft?
I think that addition was great.
Can I make a slight modification?
Yes, please.
One of the
You can
items I'd
suggest
like
one.
to do is, as we're going through this, we talk about they need to match their original site plan. I'm okay if they want to submit a replacement plan. Like if they decided to, hey, I'm gonna take out a lot of this lawn and I'm gonna put in rock. I'm not gonna say, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that. Your site plan clearly shows lawn here. So I'm okay if they want to submit an amendment to the site plan, their architectural plan that says, hey, we're gonna do this instead. I want to give them that leeway so that they're like, yeah, we found out that was way too expensive. We want to go this route. I can work with that.
We do have a process for a revised
Sure.
site ready in our ordinance. So
A
if-
revised architectural plan, I'm good. Or
We'll do that.
landscaping plan. Yep.
Yeah.
I would like to find that option.
Rebrand, yeah.
Noah's suggesting he thinks that's already there in another part of the code. Are you okay if
Oh,
it's
yeah.
already somewhere else?
As long as we refer to it here, because this very clearly shows the original site plan. So
Okay,
either
that's-
put in here site plan or amended site plan,
we'll
sure,
make
whatever,
an amendment.
as long as it's clear that there is some leeway there.
I would be good with that. Is everybody else good with a revision like that?
Yeah, I mean, when we started discussing this, we went from, okay, weeds that are too tall, 6 inches is too much, to, well, they should have weed barrier and, maybe replace mulch and rock and things like this. And that has snowballed to this laundry list of mowing, edging, trimming, all of the maintenance and things like that.
Yep, we are encouraging people to actually maintain their property. You are correct.
Mhm. Yes, I am correct, and a lot of this, us might fail on our personal properties on these types of things.
Right.
So, yeah, so
There you go.
I hate that lawn.
I think it's aggressive. I think it's quite aggressive. I would.
Again, it's
Hey,
So-
it's just a high standard best practice.
So what would you remove?
They're gonna do the bare minimum.
Well, here's to Paul, to your point, I agree that what we were trying to do is get something that would be a standard to take care of the worst offenses, obviously. We weren't looking for the minutia, but if you do decide to craft a policy, it's probably in our best interest that we try to address future concerns so that we're not having to constantly modify a policy.
So that's why we're following this.
That's what I would suggest. I'm not saying that we need to start going around going, oh, they didn't edge this week. Let's talk to somebody. I mean, honestly, it's about, hey, this is really, I couldn't walk across this without being attacked by a 12-foot milkweed.
And like Jordan mentioned in another meeting, broken windows is a very real situation. The more crappy the property gets around it, the worse stuff there happens.
There's hazards with mosquito ponds.
Yes.
So there's
Yeah, but we're
lots of-
talking about properties that are overrun, so that's what.
And that could happen.
broken
It's
windows
called the
do.
broken window effect. It tends to spread,
And
Yeah.
just like goat heads.
Yeah.
hazards.
Where is the warning period defined?
It's further down in the penalties section. 6.10.090, page 70. I don't think it mentions a warning period, does it? It's an
In the next
escalated.
page, it says after the warning period.
Oh, that's right.
And I'm just wondering who sets the warning period?
So the code enforcement officer sends out a notice of violation. And I believe it defines it in there based off whether or not it's hand delivered or mailed. And if it's mailed, I want to say there's a standard time in there, like 10 days or 14 days or something like that. I don't have the ordinance right in front of me.
That's somewhere else. And it may be in.
Yeah,
there,
I
but
hadn't-
couldn't see.
I
it.
didn't propose to change any of that, but it is in there.
So it'd be another section that defines that. And we could reference that other section if you want to put next to the warning period, put in quotation.
It just
with the
says
reference.
note after the abatement after the notice period. I don't think it defines the notice period in this
I
section.
think you have to go earlier in the ordinance that I probably didn't put in on that one pager.
Okay. So if I'm understanding this, so the first civil citation after the expiration of the warning period, so you get $125 fine, which I don't think that's, like I said, the second civil violation is 250. And then it escalates to 500. But then it makes mention of a daily rate. So is that daily rate then at the 500?
Like Brody mentioned it, there is some discretion there of whether or not you can consider every single day a new violation, or you can continue it on.
Yeah, because it says you can. I'm just concerned
we
that
don't do that.
that it allows us to do that.
I think that this is the reason for any kind of aggressive escalation is that there's usually 2 weeks to a month period of grace to say, will you take care of this? And if we get to we experienced this with a similar policy with watering restrictions during the drought, where there were some people that said, well, by the time I get around to the full fine, the season's gonna be over, and so I'll never get shut
Yeah.
off because it takes 90 days or so to get to a full fine. I think at this point, the point is that if you won't take it serious in the first 2 months, because that's about what it takes to get to the second fine, then we need something to draw your attention to the fact that this matters.
So the warning period is under definition.
Thank you.
And I would say this, that keep in mind that when we get something like this, that now falls on the prosecutor for the city, who does have discretion and leniency, who could say, okay, we understand that you've been fined 3 times, but if you've now fixed and corrected the whole thing, we'll knock the fine down or something. That's a possibility. I think that the question is when you ignore people for citation.
I agree. I don't want people ignoring this.
But you don't want to make it, yeah.
I also don't want it so egregious that we're closing business down because of a
Totally agree.
$500
So
daily fine.
What
I
is
feel
the
like
warning
this-
period? So it's defined as, it means 10 days after the date of notice, unless a greater period of time is given by the enforcement officer. If the notice of violation is delivered by first-class mail, the time for correction listed in such notice shall include the additional 5 days required for delivery.
So I feel like we should kind of also keep in mind that, so for residents, if we have a resident that can't get to it or is having an issue, Leonella will contact what are they called?
Volunteered.
The emergency people and the group. And they'll send someone out from one of the wards to help them.
Right.
Because that's the type of community that we live in.
Right.
Now, I feel like this is directed specifically to large businesses, because if it was a smaller business owned by people in our community would help. And that seems like a very common theme. So I don't think this is attacking the smaller businesses. I think it's just mostly, and it could it? Yes, it could, but discretion on like 4 different levels is available there for that situation. But there are certain businesses, like you did say, that are corporations that money is the only thing that matters.
And just for the sake of argument, I'm gonna throw this out there because we don't have to do anything. The question that came forward that started all this was, what do we do for these businesses that just don't seem to care? When we ask to try and work with them, or we reach out and say, can we help you? Can we find some resources to help you? We have tried to help a few businesses that have just kind of ignored us. So we don't have to do anything here, but if we decide that it's worth doing something, we should probably do something that's complete enough to fix the whole ordinance, or at least address things that we expect could come up.
See,
I was gonna
communication is
say-
free. If you reach back out, we can help you.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
gotta
but
work
if
it
you don't
out.
want to communicate, it's gonna cost you some funds.
You know, in the past, we have used RDA funds to help with some failing items, like in the town center, there's like that waterway, I remember we helped pay for that, we've helped pay for signage in the town center. We helped Don's Meats with their
Parking lot.
little parking lot improvement thing. So like the RDA is available if things like start snowballing and we're trying to help the business. You know, there is some
There's resources,
resources that
yeah.
we can help.
Again, we continue to grow, so it's good to have these things in place now.
And if we want to go way back when there was more prevalence of things like youth groups like Scouts. We've had Scouts help businesses refresh projects.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while because those have kind of gone, they're not as prevalent as they used to be, but again, we've tried to help people in different ways, and I think that that's the core of what we're doing.
All they gotta do is communicate.
Right.
What if we put in language that says before a daily fine is enforced, the enforcement officer has to come talk to us?
Us, the city council,
Right.
I'm,
Before we ever issue a fine?
Escalated, no, it can be escalated up to the 500, but before any kind of daily fine is
it would be
imposed.
discussed at this level.
That's a
I
good
think
idea.
that's acceptable because they would appeal any fine to this level. That's already in our core.
I feel that would take a lot of pressure off of that department also. Like making that decision.
You're saying the daily fine?
Mhm.
Before we impose.
Because
a-
after the 500, it then becomes a daily fine, and I'm assuming that's a 500, because the daily fine that's gonna carry is gonna be the last fine issue.
Well, and it's good to bring it to the council. Cause that way, you know, resources.
Cattle on 'em.
Well,
I mean, you had.
Guys,
cattle
we're
on
fixing
them,
that
I-
thing and we're gonna hit
You
it.
don't know, you don't know.
Well, it's,
sometimes it'll just take.
okay, so I'm gonna rule that it's pretty much accepted that that's a friendly amendment, and I have no issue with that. That works.
I'm still a little concerned, and maybe I'm the only one that's concerned with how we've gone from 6-inch weeds to this paragraph.
Okay,
It should be 12
That-
inch weeds. What's
That
6
covers, that covers the gambit of everything. I don't know, it seems like we've gone from, hey, you can't have 6-inch weeds to this.
There's
It's,
people who have 6 inch
it's-
grass.
You can have
quite-
6-inch weeds too. You should maintain your landscaping with everything that's there. Yeah,
It has to
That-
cover.
it's, I think this is a good change.
okay, so we're split here. Let's see
Jordan
what the majority is. We've
He's
got
right.
Jordan saying this is a good change to go that far. You're saying it's not. What are the others?
I'm with him.
I think we have to define the whole.
Okay, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, less normal wear and tear kind of thing,
Okay,
but.
so I think that we leave this, obviously, I don't think the enforcement's gonna get to the real nitpicky stuff. I think this is covering your butt in case you find a case where somebody's.
and I don't mind going on the record stating, I own a commercial property
Yeah,
in Syracuse, so I feel like I have to be a voice for people that experience that.
acceptable.
So
But, yeah.
we have dead bushes,
Code enforcement
So
should-
maintain your crap.
Like.
and we don't have any money to replace them, George, unless they jack my HOA, my business HOA fee.
Just pull them out.
Just communicate.
Yep,
Right.
just come in, give us an amended,
Our buildings are gonna be.
amended site plan.
And so if we don't have it budgeted for the year that we get the fine, then there's concern.
You're communicating.
I'm
now.
one of
All you
the
gotta do
few
is-
on the council that live this, so.
Do you want me
excuse
to
me if I take it a little further.
That's okay. No, I think this is all good discussion and all good to have on the record.
I feel like a lot of things can just be avoided if you just communicate. Leonella is always willing to communicate with residents
Yeah.
and businesses. I communicate with her so well, she just gives me this
Leonella
guy.
will not
And I know.
necessarily always be here,
I know,
nor
but
will this council,
they're
nor will
pretty
this
good about making sure
administration.
that people communicate. I think the last couple of code enforcement officers we've had have been pretty good at communicating.
Okay. All right, so I think that we have a majority opinion on this, so I'm gonna move us on. This will be on the agenda, but not under consent. We'll talk about it again freely at that point because there's not 100% agreement. So let's move us on to item E. Oh, this is gonna be much more exciting. This would be our discussion of our recruitment and retention plan. We have said for a long time that we would bring this back and discuss where we're at a different time. So,
I feel like we need a mental break before this one. That was a lot,
Another one of these.
yeah.
All right. We're still under 2 hours, so I'm gonna keep us moving and see if we can finish the whole meeting in under 2 hours. So recruitment retention. We did discover, and this was told to you during the budgeting process, that the plan that we had at the time was necessary during the post-COVID couple of years. It was accurate to be competitive with what similar cities were doing during that time, but we've determined that it is not sustainable under its present outline So we did say that we were gonna have to look at it again. This is not a meeting where we expect to settle all of the challenges all in one meeting, but we are bringing it forward for discussion. We want to hear everybody's feedback. I'm gonna open the floor with that and just say, what are some of your concerns? Because we do know it's challenged.
Well, I guess I'll start in the second voice. One of my concerns is oh, I didn't see it in this packet, but we had it in a previous, our budget retreat packet. Was that discrepancy in revenue growth versus costs of staff and employees. And so one of the things that we have in our policy is the concept of benchmarking. And other cities have a similar benchmarking policy. So all of these cities are constantly benchmarking off each other, which in my opinion creates a false escalation of salaries. I think the US labor statistics states that for 2024 average escalation of employee salaries was about 3.6.
Yeah.
And so I would be interested to know, maybe before we make a recommendation, what historically is the average increase of our employees' pay rate year over year?
This is where I'd like to be able to just like snap my fingers and point and you could rattle these off, because we did look at them and I know we know these, but I don't remember them all.
When you studied for the test, but it didn't retain.
Yeah, they did, because during the budget, we looked at these numbers very closely, and I will say that if we look at a decade span, the overall rate was between 2.5 and 3.5 average.
Okay.
The challenge was that year that we had rapid inflation and COVID and everybody was working from home suddenly. And during that time, we had a 7% increase. And the reason was that everybody around us, and it was a lot due to certain departments. It wasn't citywide. It was a real escalation in police and fire, which
Sure.
I'm not saying that's wrong, but we were trying to stay competitive with people who were very aggressive in those departments. One of the challenges, and I think that it is unique to that pandemic era, was when it's already a tough job to handle and you're gonna be out in front of other people, that's one more reason to maybe hinder your decision to apply for a job in that area.
Okay, but I think
I think
that
that's changed.
was also because the councils before that didn't do any pay raises, so it was a catch up. So that 7% was the catch up from how many years of them not at all receiving?
No, there was,
How hard is it for us to pull that data to
it's
see
not.
a year over year, maybe like 5 or
I think it's pretty easy and
10 year back?
and I appreciate wanting to compare to an average of some sort of index or something like that. One thing we have to realize is that in an average, especially like a Bureau of Labor Statistics average or something, it has all industries, right? In that average, you have computer programmers that may have had 25% pay increases. You may have had, electricians that had 10%. You may have had administrative clerical people, 5%. So it's all over the board. I think what we don't have control over, and we have to recognize, is we don't have control over what other cities pay for those same positions.
Okay.
That'd be nice if we did, because we could adjust the price.
Sure.
But we don't, we can't control that, and we don't control that. The question is how are we going to compete or not?
And while the
That's
city,
really
while the
what
city
that-
was overall around a 7% during that period, we had double digits in some of the first responder positions.
Sure.
But that was also because that was happening all around us. And we would not be able to maintain our staff if we were not being competitive with the county, basically.
I feel like one of the most elementary standards any city should have is if your employees work for the city full-time, they should be able to afford to live in the city full-time. At the very minimum.
Well, I think that that's a nice idea. I think the real question comes in, what does that mean? Because depending on your position, I mean, I can guarantee you,
I said at the
People-
very minimum.
yeah, well, I mean, it's just, it varies so much on your family situation.
I'd like to hear from the staff what the challenges that they see with it is now. What the employee retention issues would be and what is reasonable.
Well, and I thought we came up with in that budget retreat, I thought there was a proposal, which I didn't see in this. That I thought, well, to me at least made sense. I can't remember if it made sense to other people. But there was a proposal that,
There was,
but it didn't make it back into this. I don't know. Is that because?
Yeah, that was what, and the reason for that is we had a one-time decision to do it this year outside of the adopted policy.
right, and so what we're
Doesn't necessarily
talking
mean that
about,
that's gonna be the right thing going forward, but it was for this year. And that's an option that the council has in the policy. And it's really meant to be kind of an emergency, safety valve, or pressure relief valve, I'll say, which is what we had this year in the budget. We had deficit. And so, that's arguably a good time to use the safety valve. And so, but it's not necessarily, we didn't really comprehensively talk about that's going to be our policy going forward.
so you're right,
Right.
this is what we're starting to talk about now, because we're expecting that this will be adjusted by the time that we get through the next budget cycle. So this does not have to be decided in one meeting.
Yeah.
Sure.
This is one that we have to decide on what a new standard and what that standard will revolve around, because at one point, I'll be very clear that we talked about, could it be as simple as taking the standard policy of the average of the top 3 competitive cities to the top 4, and what does that do to us? It does make an impact. I think that it's not that different. We looked at what is it really competitive to be the average of the top 5 or 6. You can start getting down there and you start falling to being several departments ahead of you. And we do know that we are considered one of the bigger city. Well, mathematically, we are the 3rd biggest city in the county. So can we really say that we're going to pay less than half the competitors in the city, in the county? That's a tough one, because you'd think that, I mean, the question is it worth it to take that much less, and still be here? So you have to decide, where does this go? But when we were doing our evaluation, we realized that's maybe not the best way to solve it. Maybe it is. Maybe there's other ways we can skin that, thing. And one of those other things was, do we go to something that addresses the standard inflationary index? Or we talked about maybe a more true index for the state is to use the retirement index that the state uses, because it only figures Utah businesses. It doesn't figure regional
And I think
businesses.
that's what we were discussing.
We were discussing
Yeah, that's
that.
one of the-
So, and that's a COLA adjustment that we added into that. What if we did the second, because I know that top one, I believe is Farmington, right? And theirs is way freaking higher than the rest of them. They got to jump between them and everybody else. So what if we did second, third, and fourth cities, the average of those?
And eliminate the top.
And then eliminate the top, what would that do?
It's certainly something to consider, and the reason why that would be really good to consider is there are at least 2 cities in this county who compete for being the top pay, with the goal of always being the top pay. So
Clearfield.
actually, no, it's Clearfield and Layton. But Farmington only really competes when they did a major adjustment. They realized they hadn't done anything in years, and if they didn't catch up, they were going to be 8th or 9th on the list, and they know that they can't.
Hayesville just did that too. didn't they?
Hayesville did too. Yep, that's
And
correct.
all of these cities have direct I-15 access.
That's correct.
That's for business development,
Which means-
attracting business, which we do
We
not.
do not have. Yep.
So if we took, because I remember on that, on the comparisons on all of them that we looked at, the top one was quite a bit higher
Yes.
than even second. So
Yeah, can we do mean instead of average?
If we do mean, then you have the question, and we absolutely can. And maybe that's the right, decision. But let me say what one of the challenging points was in the system we used before this system, people started to feel like they were just being compared to a mediocre and they would never be a top paying position because of the system was directing them to the 60th percentile of the county average. And so people started to misinterpret that policy. And we were hearing people say, am I only 60% of an employee? That was all wrong, in my opinion, but it was the argument that was coming forward that was destroying morale.
Yeah, that's not how statistics work.
Yes, I agree.
Education is key in some of these aspects.
Yeah,
But-
you gotta be able to communicate
Yeah.
to that message.
It's not about communicating, it's about receiving.
But what the message that came back was, is it wasn't enough to feel like you were working in a top city type position. Not that you have to be the top, but you have to be competitive with the top. And the message that was getting back to us was, we don't feel like we're even competitive with the top cities at that point.
So remind
But
me,
they
in
weren't.
our current benchmarking, is there any sort of a cap that says, well, even if the benchmarks come in at this and show that there's some sort of, I guess, restrictor on there that says an individual won't exceed X amount or X percentage increase in pay in 1 year?
For our top,
There's
There is
currently
for the
not
top.
one stipulated, there's not a ceiling stipulated.
We have for a couple of consecutive years done that to this uppermost
The-
2 levels.
yeah.
Yeah,
of
the
management.
council hasn't imposed those, mainly, it hasn't, it's just not stipulated in the council of what that is.
Sure.
It's been sort of just decided during the budget process. But again, that's a question of, and I know that's a question of affordability is what you, I think what you're getting at. The decision point is if there is a cap and you do go through a scenario like public safety did during COVID and right after COVID. And we cap ours, but others aren't capping theirs, then it's the same thing as just falling behind lower on the scale.
But I feel like we should, I don't wanna, I know it's our responsibility to look at this from a financial aspect, but I feel like, cause you touched on the morale of it, I'm gonna too, that they're still humans. And if you would compare the difference in attitude with these humans that work for the city from about 6 years ago to now, it's drastically different. You talk to the city employees, they're much happier now and they feel more valued, and the level of service they provide is just better. They're not upset, and they're still human beings that have a standard of mental health that they need to be able to do their job. And if they can't pay their bills, if you take too much, then you're gonna have disgruntled employees and pissed off citizens, and everybody's gonna be mad.
I'm just gonna throw out there for the record that this is one of the hardest things to manage as a city council. Over all the years that I've been involved in cities. It is such a huge part of our budget is what you pay employees. It's vital to keeping good employees. And it is hard because you don't control there's so many factors that control the amount of revenue that you have to work with. And so this is one of the hardest things of all.
And in a lot of areas, it's a tight labor market.
It is a very
There's
tight-
not a
And
lot
you
of
get what you
candidates
pay
out
for.
there.
You
So
get what you pay
It's
for.
tough. It's tough.
Don't we
If-
have to look at hiring? Where are we going to be in a hiring? There has to be cost of living to make sure that everything is caught up. And then what does it look like from a merit, loyalty? Is there any way to enhance? I mean, aren't those kind of the 3
Yeah,
factors?
I think we did the COLA this year. What, didn't we do that? We discussed the COLA for this.
We did. I think, I mean, what Brett's describing though is there are many, we don't have to do all of them and we can do all of them. It's a matter of which levers do you pull to manage the situation that you have. And I have seen us do different things. And sometimes they've worked better at different times. This is one of the most inconsistent parts of city management by far.
Well, from a policy standpoint, we have to hire at a reasonable rate
Yes.
to get the right person.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that looks like to department.
And I feel like,
Are you able to, if you can get the people, are you able to get them and are we competitive there?
I think that's different for different departments.
yeah,
So let's do this. Let me interject this point. It really depends on the people, the workforce available in different departments.
Right, which we're gonna have to be dealing with.
Yes, so we could ask
Now
each
and
department head, and they may have slightly different responses, but the bottom line, the thing that affects it the most is the availability, because we've seen, like, in particular in police, one of the challenges that we've had as long as I've been here has been the police academy applicants have been extremely low compared to 20 years ago. You know, Garrett told us before in these meetings, he says, you know, it used to be you'd have 50 people in a class and not all of them were going to get jobs because there weren't that many jobs. Today, there might be 4 in a class and there's 10 positions that need to be filled in the area. So we don't even have enough people to fill the jobs. Making it more in demand means that you're going to have to pay more in a position like that. On the flip side, I can tell you that many office worker positions, there is a long, we put one out and we get 50 applicants in a day. So the fact that there's an abundance of people willing to do the job means we don't have to, you know, pay a max rate to get a good qualified person because there's many choices. So again, this is why I say it really depends a lot on the particular department, and we can, I mean, I can quiz the ones that are here, that's not an issue, but it really depends on the job and the availability of people to do that job or interest level. So I'll just start, and Alex, are you having a hard time or an easier time?
So I'll just give you a quick snapshot of, we just did new hire testing, PT test on Friday. So I'll have 3 vacancies as of September 6th, which is a significant number when you're a 31 sworn department, 2 frozen positions, so I've got 25. So we had 23 applicants show up for testing. 21 applicants, 21 applicants show up for testing, they all pass the PT test, they'll go to the interview phase. So we'll select 3 off of that. By policy, we can't start background testing unless they have a traditional job offer. So background testing, of those 3, there's a high likelihood that 2 of them get washed out. So now I have to start that process over. So that's 2 to 3 weeks. So then I go to the next 2 on the list. One of those gets washed out, I go to the next one on the list. And I'm trying to meet academy deadline dates as well, so I've got to try and get somebody into the academy. You brought it up, Mayor. A lot of these police applicants before were self-sponsoring, so they were paying their way to get their own certification. That doesn't exist anymore. People realize that the market is what it is. They know that a police department is willing to put them through the academy. So now we're going to send the academy 12 to 15 weeks, depending on the schedule. They're going to come back to us. So right now, if I was to hire, get somebody in the October class, I'm not getting them off of FTO on the road working for me until probably June or July. And so when it comes to my biggest concern is, can I get people through the door to test and interview and get them hired? Yes, it's gonna take some time, but I can get them there. My biggest concern is retaining those people once I've put the time and money into training them, which again, when we're going through an FTO process, I'm taking an experienced guy, making him ride in a car with him. So I'm not really fussing on the body right there. So it's the retention that I see as our biggest issue right now. If I want to look at our starting wage to bring in a brand new officer, we're not super competitive. Other agencies, you know, if you go stand on a different street corner in Clearfield, you're gonna make about $6 more an hour to start, which is significant when we're talking, well, I'm sorry, that's probably about $5 more an hour to start. Same thing with Layton.
To be fair, though, those were just advertised. That's not a year ago's wage. Those are very recent advertisements.
That's correct. That's correct. So it is a challenge, certainly, and retention is a significant challenge. And I think, you know, the way I look at it is having experienced officers on the road is a significant benefit to the city, but it does come at a cost. And so my average years on patrol, if I were to eliminate supervisors right now, is under 3 years. And so I would like to be able to keep the people that we have right now, and that would be my biggest motivating factor behind our retention policy.
So I have a question,
Yes, ma'am.
the background checks, is that common practice doing the background check after the offer has been made for in law enforcement, or do they start the background check before and anywhere else? Is that holding you guys up? What about that?
Great question. What I would like to do is take a pool of qualified candidates and say, we're gonna send you to a background, and they would have to authorize us to do so. So then I could start on 5 for only 3 positions, or I could start on 6 for only 3 positions, which would help me to limit the
How many
time.
times you gotta cycle through that process?
Correct.
So is that more cost effective for us to do it that way than how we were normally doing it?
It's
Or
more,
currently?
it's more labor intensive on our end to begin with, but it would appear that most of the time we're gonna have the same result, right? So for every 2 people or 3 people we background, we end up with 1. And I'm just throwing that as a statistic, as anecdotal, just based on my experience, but yes.
So if we say background 25, we got 3 positions back, we send a bunch of them, and we get 10 back that check out, then we're gonna fill those 3 spots
That's
likely,
a-
right? So it seems like it would be more beneficial to change that specific part of the policy to help get cops in sooner than if it was financially feasible.
If we were to have to do that frequent, we would probably have to staff up HR in order to handle all the background checks.
I'm not saying we would send all 25, we probably have 5 for 3 positions.
And Mayor, the burden falls on the police
It's
department.
them, yeah.
Oh, is it yours?
So-
Okay.
So yes, that would be the limiting factor to how many we could take
The
on.
ability that they can do.
Well,
Probably something to think about, but
Right.
if that helps changing that policy, then why wouldn't we?
so let's stay on the task at hand. That's a good solution, and I think we should come back to that. But let me go to Robert, and you tell me your reaction to the labor market you're in.
Yeah, so, the entry levels, I don't generally have too much of a problem like getting entry level folks in. There's not a massive amount of applications. It's a very
Okay.
slim amount of applications that come in, but generally it's enough to fill the positions I have. My entry levels are no experience basically needed. A lot of times I'm getting kind of the 18 to 22-year-old with basically no experience wanting to get a little bit of money. And if they stay on, we can advance them through, we start them at level 1, we can advance them through, get a little bit of a bump to level 2, but there's some certifications required, some time and experience is required, and then level 3. My most challenging thing is keeping the employees. Once they reach like a level 2 or a level 3, particularly level 3, they're very experienced, have all the certifications they need to do the job. And then they find out other cities, they jump ship. My last one was 2 months ago, jump ship, up to Kaysville for $7 an hour more to do the exact same position, less work because Kaysville doesn't have all of the utilities that we have to do. And then he also got, because it was July, came their fiscal year, he got another $1 an hour. That was the reason he left. So that hurt us a lot. And then, this didn't affect us directly, but indirectly. When Clearfield's, water guy left for more pay, they were scrambling a little bit and they were having a tough time with their water system. And anyway, so we jumped in and helped out, which was great. But it put in my mind the thought of what if our highly experienced water guys or water superintendent left? We would be scrambling hard. So
Yeah.
yes, my biggest worry that keeps me up at night is retaining the experienced people. I'm not as concerned about, the entry level pay as far as pay goes, but definitely, my, level 3s, the crew leads, the supervisor. They're essential to keep the operation going. The other thing I was gonna mention is, on-call pay. So other cities have already done an increase in their on-call pay. They went around
got information from all the other cities, say, what are you paying, to try to benchmark it, and then they raise theirs, and then share the data. It is definitely, ours hasn't been changed for, I don't know, 8 to 10 years, so as far as public works goes. We, like I mentioned, we do more utilities than any other city. And most cities are like 3 utilities, which is usually like, water, streets, and storm drain. Some do sewer, some don't do sewer. We do, and then we also have, street lights and, secondary on top of that. So we have 6 utilities that we get, there's a higher probability of us getting calls on. Simply go out, probably more frequently than others. Anyway, I just feel like that needs to be looked at some point, for, evaluation. That is something my guys are to set it out to. So, anyway, so that's, I do need to retain who we have, to keep our infrastructure on.
Okay, recruitment. I'll just talk about recruitment really quick. It's, as Brody mentioned, it's just what the demand is out there. It's, the pipeline usually isn't full. There's 3 fire academies in the state that bring in outside students and prepare them, and most of them either come in with a job in hand or they leave before they have a job. So, or they leave with a job. They get a job while they're in the academy. So, sometimes the pipeline will put out a job application for 2 or 3 positions, and we might get 1 or 2 applicants. So it changes. It really does. The recruitment issue that we have right now is probably more with our part-time. That's where we kind of see a lot more of our turnovers with our part-time staff. As far as the retention side of it, or go back to the recruitment side really quick, because we talked about the competitiveness. You asked that. As we sit right now in the fire department, I feel like our wage where we're at now is competitive. But if you recall, just in July, our fire department did go through the benchmark. The wage scales were moved with the benchmark, although the fire department was not one of the departments that had any kind of movement within that benchmark range. So it did create some compression. We had some positions where new hires were coming in making as much as a 3, 4, 5 year guy. So it did create some compression. We're able to kind of tentatively or temporarily work through that, I believe. But so that's part of as we sit now for recruitment coming in. Retention is always a challenge, especially in part-time. Part-time, it's like a revolving door. It feels like we're constantly moving through part-timers. And a lot of it's, work-life balance, pay. I mean, there's just a lot of different reasons out there for that. Full-time right now, I feel like we're doing all right maintaining full-time, but I think we also have a great department with some great morale. And I think when you talk about retention of employees, you've got intrinsic, and which is the morale, the department, the home, the good feeling that you have there. And then you have the extrinsic, which is the money. So I think there's a little bit of both. And I think right now, I think we're sitting in the fire department. I think we're sitting okay on that, but I can see that if we don't maintain or keep up, there's going to be future problems. So that's why I left the fire department.
Well, mine is very similar, I think, to Robert's, because we kind of, fall on the same kind of maintenance level. We do have a little struggle of getting a lot of applicants that are experienced at that lower level. It's like $18 an hour. So you get like these young kids coming in, and then it's a revolving door, which we've been really lucky to keep a lot of ours lately. So one of the biggest thing for ours is we will benchmark every other year with Public Works. And so when they benchmark and they'll go up, $2, and then we're going up against them trying to get people. That's a nightmare. So I would definitely recommend in this that we benchmark every year so that all of us are kind of especially in those similar jobs are the same. Because we'll have his part-time employees right now are making more than some of our park maintenance too. And that's a huge issue for us. But retention, again, is a huge thing. If we can just keep people here instead of having them out the door and retraining, because that seems to be what is happening.
And that was one of the suggestions that we made at this year's budget, was that we would move to an every year instead of an every other year. And I think that's still on the table because it will lessen the impact of the movement. But that's up for discussion. That's not resolved. Steve.
So I think you're seeing the complexity of a city that has very drastically different services it provides underneath the same roof. For administration, depending on the job, they have several applicants. it's less time intensive to train that. But every job is unique, and when we do these benchmarks, we compare every position to get to the average of the top 3 of these 7 benchmark cities. We have good data on some positions, we don't have a lot of great data. Some positions, when we benchmark, like we're hearing a year later, they're already out of the market, we're behind. Some move a lot quicker. So the challenges of a policy, a holistic policy, is trying to come up with a game plan that we can benchmark each position individually compared to other cities. But you are gonna have a variety of change. You might have a position, I think we had a couple this year that didn't have any increase in benchmark. Versus I think our IT position went up 25%. And everywhere in between. So to try and just say, let's do a 1% fits all of it, doesn't work with things anymore. What we did this year with the budget to try and make it fit is we followed our same game plan on the benchmark studies. So we moved the scales, but what was different this year is we didn't move that person the same position in the scale. Meaning if they're halfway through, if the scale moved, now they didn't move the whole way. And what we're hearing as well is if you had a 2 or 3 year person that was maybe 20% up the scale, if the scale moved that 20%, now they're being paid the same as an entry level first year person. So there's some problems with that, but we did it to try to balance the budget. We did some other things, some temporary measures to try and make it work. I think what we're looking at trying to do from this policy standpoint is start at a high level, and that's why a lot of the numbers weren't in the packet tonight. We're trying to start from square one and say, on a high level, how do we want to compete with other cities? What are other cities we want to compete with? Right now, we've identified 7. Is that enough? Do we need more? I would say in some positions we need more data. We have some unique positions out there that we may only pull 2 other cities. So there's some things we need to work through. There's questions on average of the top 3, average of the top 4. Where should we fit in to be still remain competitive? So we're not a training ground. I think what you're hearing here is we're not necessarily not getting applicants. We're getting them, just not as much as we'd like. We're having some fall through backgrounds or other things. But I think the bigger concern is if we don't maintain and keep up with other cities, we train these individuals and in 2 to 3 years they're gone. So we spent all this time in training and getting them up to speed, and then another city comes in and takes them all trained and ready to go. Yeah, historically our turnover rate's been anywhere from 15 to 20% citywide. And I don't think that's changed much between the 2 different versions of the policy we've had over the last decade with 15 years. We've had some spikes, we've had some more, but it averages somewhere in that 15 to 20% range. And I wouldn't say I'm going to say it's all due to wages. It's not. We have a variety of reasons why people leave. Wage does play a factor. So you got to work all these issues into this policy, and I think that's what we're trying to do. Is let's start from a high level, see where we're at. Is that where we want to be? And work from there on pulling numbers and data. If we're saying, the chart we gave you in March or April in the budget retreat does show a projection that is not sustainable. But I think we need to work through where we go from here.
Noah.
So we're only in CED, we're only 11 people. So the other departments have a lot more staffing and hiring. And so recently there's been 2 positions. So our planner 1 had to move recently, and so we just got done. We have a position that was just we had a good number of applicants and some good. So I think that we're in the right place there. Our employee that moved is interviewing for a place in Idaho, a rural Idaho county, and I talked to the planning manager there, and he says that they might have a hard time matching what he's earning here. So I think that goes to some of the points that have already been made, that who we're comparing to is important. That geographically varies. A rural county in Idaho can't pay the same as well. The same, we might not be able to pay for I-15. That geographic qualifier, I don't think is in our policy of being whether or not it's on I-15. So that's kind of an interesting point as far as what factors we should take into account as far as who we're comparing to. Before that, we had a couple years ago, we were hiring for a building inspector, and that was tough because we had like 2 applicants, and we were just happy to get any, and that was a different hiring environment than COVID and things like that. But as far as, and this has already been said too, I think this is not directly related to the specific wage, but the amount of job duties that a person is expected to cover is important too. Because if somebody can go to a different city and have less work for the same pay or maybe a little bit more pay, they're going to do it. And so that right now, having a hiring freeze or not being able to grow as the city grows, that can be a problem too. So we need to be able to create the new positions as we grow. So those are the 2 points: who we compare to, and making sure we can continue creating new positions as we grow.
Hey, Brody,
Yeah.
anything you wanted to add?
Well, yeah, I mean, all of this, what I would say is what we've got to get out of tonight is what do we want this policy to do from a high level? What is it that you want this policy to do? We can craft a policy 120 different ways with, who we compare to and to what level and how are advancements done and all these, how are merit increases done. We can craft, you've got experienced staff here, we can craft anything. What is it that you want the policy to do, and to what extent do we as the city want to fight to fund it, is really what it boils down to.
So I have another question. We heard Chief Davis mention it about there's the closest person to their season is 3 years on the road experience. Is that what you said?
Excluding supervisors.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's 3 years on the road. So, and Mr. Robert touched on the experience, the teachers is what I call them. All the departments have the teachers and the students. And I've noticed in most departments, except maybe in City Hall, that there is a drastic gap of experience years between the teachers and the students. And if we lose the teachers, we're not going to have anybody to teach the students. So I would say, from seeing it in each department, the 2 of the main things we should address is keeping the teachers and getting more teachers to join us in the middle level. We don't really have any in the middle across the board in most of the departments. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong, but
I
we
want to
have
throw in, because you're talking about getting people to that teacher level. We have in the last couple of years started an internal, and I credit Brody a lot and Chief Atkin, who spent a lot of time. We have a leadership academy now in the city that's helping grow some of the mid-level people to where they could be our future managers. So we've thought that through. We've implemented one part of that solution. There may be more.
Yeah, pay.
Well, okay, but so what I want to build on here too about what Brody brought in is we can talk about all the different situations with each different department, but right now we have to figure out what policy can guide us through. We can always make exceptions.
That's what I was getting at,
Yeah.
is if we make our policy to where we ensure we're keeping the teachers and making it more palatable from people from other cities that are mid-level to come here, I don't feel so bad about the lower, newest people making a little bit less.
Okay, so where I was going with this is, in this policy that we have to craft, we have to figure out also what the city can afford. Because we could say, well, we just need to find lots more resources, but we also have the question of what this city will tolerate. Because if we just say, okay, well, we just need 30% more income to pay everybody, so we're going to put that on our citizens and they revolt, it won't last very long. it will go away very quickly. And then what good did we do anybody? So I'm going to cut this off at this point because this discussion is going to go on for months and we will revisit it in sections, and we'll try to be more organized in the future as to which section we're taking on at a time. But I don't think that we're going to put, we've heard from most of the department heads. I left out Colin, you only have one employee. So I think that what we need to do is keep in mind that we're trying to figure out something that our employees can look to as guidance for expectations, for feeling like they're being treated fairly. I don't know exactly what that is, but this is not about what we pay individual people. This is also about what they feel is a fair balance between what we can do and what they're willing to work for. So that we have to balance both sides of this equation. So I'm going to cut it off there. We will come back to this. The point of tonight was not to have a final resolution. I'm going to bring us to item number F, Annual Fraud Risk Assessment Review. We have to do this every year. This is brought by the State Auditor's Department. We have to assess our risk. We have to bring it to council and talk about it. We have never been a high-risk city. There are certain things we really just can't functionally do, but other than those kind of small things, we pretty much do everything anyway. So we've been kind of a stellar performer for the situation we're in, but I'll let Steve talk about it.
Yeah, so there's a matrix in here, there's a chart. There are two things on this list that we don't do. Those come with money and time. So the internal audit function, the whole intent of an internal audit function is you need someone that's independent from staff that can report objectively to a body, which is an audit committee, which we also don't have currently. So in order to do an internal audit function that should operate properly, you have to put more resources to paying someone either outside to come in and do it, or a staff that is dedicated and reports to an audit committee. So we currently haven't done that, but other than that, we are sitting at a low risk. You can see the score in there. All right.
Yeah.
The same two things every year though.
Yeah, it is. Everything we do all the time, and we do this at special districts, we do this other places, just so everybody knows, we are really a stellar performer, but there are certain things that it just is not fiscally prudent to try and take on. We would spend a lot more money and we would not be reflective of a real different status. So thank you. Let's move on to discussion regarding scheduling of Heritage Days. This really comes about that we have for the last couple of years realized that on the years that the air show, which has now become every other year, happens, we've kind of rescheduled around it. The suggestion was made after this year's Heritage Days, maybe we should move it completely so that it's at a time when we don't have to move it ever. It's always at the same time. The suggestion was made to go to the third week instead of the fourth week of June because there's no real competitor. The nearest competitor is South Ogden City. We don't really consider them a draw that pulls from our resource, whereas Hill Air Force is.
Second to the last.
It's second to last, so most of the time it'll fall in the third week, but when there's 5 weekends, then it'll fall to the fourth.
So I can tell you from experience, people don't have horses in the parade because on the weekend of the air show, because it panics the horses. That's why we don't have them in our Heritage Day parade on
Okay.
when it's the same weekend.
Well, I think just in general, we don't want to compete against the air show. And so
It's just confusing to everybody because
It
you're
is.
just switching it. And so
Yeah.
if you see the dates in there, those would be the dates that we have until 2031, and we can start putting those out for vendors, and Carol will know when it is, Leslie, and we'll be able to move forward.
I think it makes sense. Does anybody have a problem with this?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna put this on the consent agenda. We'll just move forward. The next question to do this is, it does pose a challenge with Juneteenth, which in our policy, we have celebrated on the 19th, which would normally fall during Heritage Day, so we would end up with a holiday in the Heritage Days week. However, the state has adopted a policy for the best interests of all employees that Juneteenth is the closest Monday to the 19th. And if we did that, it would really probably not impact Heritage Days because we don't do much on Monday anyway. If it was on that week and if it was outside that week, it still doesn't impact us. So if we adopted the state policy for Juneteenth, this is solved.
It doesn't impact us at all. It impacts them.
Them,
So how do they feel about it?
they brought the suggestion, so.
Okay. So they just wanna go.
I don't think you'll ever hear someone complain about having Monday off instead of Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
There seems to be support, so does anybody have a problem with adjusting to the state policy? Yeah, I think this is a no-brainer because it's working other places. All right, now we need discussion regarding proposed reprioritization of the 3,000 West culinary and secondary water lines in the capital improvement plan. We're doing a lot of road work on 3,000 at this point in time. While it's torn up, we think it's the best time to move stuff, so you don't have to pay to tear it up a separate time. So moving these lines to the right position while it's torn up, we think makes sense. We've done the analysis. Does anybody have a problem reevaluating where this falls in on?
No.
Okay, it makes sense to me. I'll put that on the
We should advertise that we're saving money.
So one thing on that, Mayor, really quick. Time is of the essence, so we'd like to get going on the project. We bring this back in a formal budget opening when we do a discussion in September with an October approval. But we'd like your go ahead, at least a head nod to.
Yeah, unless anybody has an objection, we're gonna just include this in the current work. Is there anyone who has an objection?
No.
No.
Okay, then it is done. We will move forward. We'll do official resolutions in a future meeting. And that brings us to the point where we are going to move into a closed session. We have an update on a legal interest issue. You know, when we talk about legal issues, we can go to closed session. So thank you. Let's take a 2-minute break.
It's.
Yes.
I'm not running for.
Okay, you don't have to.
You need to say.
I
didn't know.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
You don't?
I don't know.
Looking at me, I'm waiting.
You're.
No.
Yeah.
Yay. I'm usually a yay.
Can I go?
No, you can stay.
Don't stress me out this time.
I need to send, I sent, Matt. Or.
I go to
Okay, I'm gonna send you a
shower day, so the Brett shouldn't be too
free website, so when you bring it up on.
It was your weekly shower day?
Yeah, weekly shower day.
Thanks for doing that on Tuesdays.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm gonna say it's probably about 13 or 14 hours ago it happened.
Actually, you know, if you just did it every other Tuesday when you got them right, I'd be good with that.
See, I'm on, I started at 7 this morning.
Make sure you line up with city council though, so there's a Cleveland fifth.
Yeah, don't let the fifth Tuesday.
It would throw us all off.
Tuesday, yeah. Yeah. I can't keep track of a schedule like that.
Thank you for coming.
I can't keep track of what day is shower day. I just do it every day.
Love you. So fun.
Hey.
Hey.
So,
I'm just gonna email it, is that okay?
okay, yeah. So with the post
What was that flyer
office,
on?
so say like for the Juneteenth thing, when we do passports and they have to go out, does the post office just lock our stuff up? Because that's been a thing like where,
Toxins and.
yeah, I know. So the post, like where passports have to be mailed out same day by the Department of State's guidelines. So they're just gonna lock all of our stuff up.
We're gonna call this business meeting to order and consideration to move into closed session. Can I get a motion to move into closed session?
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?